Yo, welcome into the DNVR Gaming Podcast brought to you by WGT Golf. Remember to download it totally for free today at DNVRgolf.com. It is the most popular and beloved free golf game in the world. We love it here at the DNVR community, always playing on that thing. And we're going to talk today a little bit about games as a service. But first, we got to jump into there's a new generation out there, boys. I am your host, Drew Kreisman. With me, as always, the DNVR Avs team of Rudo and AJ. At least I'm pretty sure that's Rudo. That I'm fairly certain that's Rudo over there in the corner.
10% chance I could be Sinead O'Connor. You don't know.
Yes.
Oh, what a perfect of all the bald people to have pulled from. I think that was the right one.
Yeah, we decided this yesterday after our show.
Well done. Correct dual decision-making process in that case. So yeah, we do want to look. It's a gaming podcast. We can't not acknowledge that since the last time we spoke, we have literally entered the next generation of console gaming with the launches of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Now, none of us have those systems. Let's start with that. Our impressions right here up front are mostly going to be like what we've seen on YouTube and friends and Twitter, people talking about it, what we've known ahead of time. But still, I figured we couldn't have no reaction. AJ, since you were sharing before the show a little bit, we'll start with yours and then we'll build up to mine. But what is just your general response to this entire evolution into this next generation of console gaming, Ben?
Oh, it happened. I've never been less excited for a new generation of consoles. I'm not sure why this generation of consoles needed to happen. They had just released their second versions of the last generation of consoles pretty recently.
Right.
And I don't see the huge step forward that consoles usually represent.
Yeah, the step forward is definitely weird, right? Like, one of the major selling points is these consoles can play games in 4K, which is cool and all, but most people still don't have a 4K television. So
right. Well, it's 4K so far has kind of gone the way of Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Where it was supposed to we were going to go from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray, and that was going to be the standard eventually. But it was for all the early adopters, and then everybody was like,
what if everything was just a digital
I've got a
copy?
DVD. It's fine. I don't need it in Blu-ray. If I had, okay. Yeah. And I think 4K will get there, but so far that's where it's been, where the 4K has just kind of been if you can afford it, if you want to convert, if you want to go through the process of making sure that everything that you own is compatible with this one thing, then it's really awesome and it's cool, but it's still expensive. It's still nowhere near standard, and it's you got to work for this.
Yeah, that's the exact reason why I never did get the PS4 Pro, right? Despite the fact that I have a first generation, the PlayStation 4 from the very first version of it that came out. That thing is loud. Yeah. It is on its last legs. It overheated the other day playing a PS2 game. So I was playing Final Fantasy 12 and the thing overheated in November. It was a warmer day out, but still. But yeah, because it's not just, okay, we'll get a PS4 Pro. With the TV that I've got, that wouldn't really be an upgrade. I don't have a 4K TV. So it's not just spend $300 or $400 on a new system. It's spend $300 or $400 on a new system and $300 or $400 or $500 at least on a new TV. And now I'm looking at $1,000 investment so that I can play Miles Morales, which looks dope as hell. And I really want to play that Miles Morales game. But if I went and got a PS5 right now and hooked it up to my standard HD television that doesn't have 4K, I really wouldn't be getting much out of it.
I think part of it too is the games available in a lot of ways. First of all, we really only seen the PS4 and Xbox One or One X or whatever version they're on it get pushed to like the console's limits within the last year. Most games don't push the consoles to the limits. Yes, in Drew's case, if you have an older version, sometimes they're starting to die out a little bit, but they're not really that many games that really push these consoles. And when you hear things like, guess what, GTA 5 is going to be a release game, and it's like, this game's been out for 7 years.
Yeah.
It's like, again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's been a release title multiple times.
On full Skyrim at this point. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, this is about as
they might as well have
underwhelming.
released Skyrim.
Yeah. I mean, across both systems, I've seen people, and I'm more of a PlayStation guy, but I've seen people say, man, PlayStation really wipes the floor with Xbox right now when it comes to actual like new games out. And I'm like, Miles Morales looks dope. And that's it, y'all. Like, I don't know what else, like the Demon Souls. And I've seen some stuff like the upgrades look good. Ouroboros brings up one of my favorite things about it, which is the load times that you can get in and out of the games really, really fast, which I do appreciate. But I think it all goes back to that first problem that you guys were talking about, which is like, you can see that it's going to be.
It's just not there yet.
It's just not quite there yet. The incentive to get it right now. I'm also very fascinated. People keep talking up the controller, the haptic feedback and all these different, that actually sounds like a tangibly different gaming experience that will make me feel like I'm in a new generation. But without getting your hands on it, without actually doing it, and without it, it sounds like there's basically one game right now that takes advantage of that feature fully.
And that's stuff that that is stuff that's going to be hard for games to make use of and make it be like a consistent thing, because most developers are, when they get their dev kits and they do all that they have to do, they're going to be like, do we want to learn how to incorporate all this? Do we have a cool idea for this?
Right.
And the answer is going to be no, the majority of the time. And so it's like, this is a thing that they can do, but okay.
Yeah.
I think people felt the same way about Rumble features though too, right? And that's become pretty standard. It's a
little different with Rumble features because all you have to do is make the controller shake at the appropriate time.
Right.
And
this is definitely going to take
more
more
advanced beyond that.
Think,
that's.
And maybe the PS exclusives will help with the haptic feedback maneuver, because the only reason Rumble really became a thing, I believe, is that Nintendo was like, make it or get the F off our console.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Again, it all depends on whether or not the developers take advantage of it or not. It only takes one killer app, right? Using all that stuff to make it be like, oh, okay, this is totally worth it. This is a new sort of gaming experience, but it's not the kind of
that
standard
it's built
like
in helps.
Right.
Like,
but yeah,
it's not like the Kinect, where they were like, this is going to change
a whole
gaming.
other part to this whole console.
And right. the accessories, they never do well in gaming ever.
Yeah. I mean, that's been one of the big bugaboos for a while now. But yeah, I agree, as somebody who got the PlayStation 2 day one, and had played the best looking games on the PlayStation 1. Final Fantasy 9 is largely considered to be graphically the most impressive game on that system. And then to play Final Fantasy 10 on the PlayStation 2, just a few months later, it was a huge difference. You can go back and look at those games now. A massive upgrade. You felt like you were just in a completely new generation, and now we don't. And I think, in a few months or maybe, but like Rudo said, maybe it takes a full year or whatever. But by then, the graphics and the advance will catch up to like, oh, fast load times and a new neat controller.
Yeah,
I mean,
the fact that they're backwards compatible like is gonna matter a lot more a year from now.
Yeah.
But that being a selling point on day one blows my mind because I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
you are buying a brand new console so that you can play your old games?
Yeah.
Like the concept of it was insane to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's nice to have this. I always make this argument about why PC gaming is better because you don't have to worry about that. I started buying Steam games 10 years ago, and those games are still sitting in my library, and I can
Right.
still just reinstall and play them on a whim at any point ever, and I don't ever have to worry about, oh, is this one backwards compatible?
Right.
I saw a thing that was like, oh, the new PlayStation is backwards compatible for all but 11 games.
Yeah.
What if those are my favorite 11 games? Like, it's like, dude, that's so messed up.
I mean,
And so it's my big struggle with consoles continues, and like as a lifelong gamer, my big struggle with the whole console concept is that they're becoming more and more like miniature PCs.
Yep.
To the point where I'm like, I'll just build a PC and get my daily uses out of this thing as well.
Yeah. To Drew's point as well, it only gets hard. It gets exponentially harder for the significant improvement in graphics every year to matter. Like the
Right.
jump between 3,000 pixels and 30,000 pixels is like unbelievable. But the jump between 30 million and 60 million, you can barely even tell.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
it gets harder as you go.
Yeah.
It's
And
the big question for the future of console gaming is what's next. It's
Right.
one reason why I think Nintendo is still as impressive as they are is because the Switch is completely unlike those things. When I'm in Canada for 2 months, what happened was one thing that I packed.
yeah.
I brought a laptop and I brought a Switch
Right.
because it's like there's very few games that I can get, especially with the Game Pass service that they've started offering. There's very few games in the world now that I can't already get on a PC or a Switch.
Yeah, I mean, almost all of my favorite games are Sony exclusives right now, so I'm sort of stuck. They kind of own me in that particular way, right? But that's part of their market strategy. It's you if you own the license to stuff people want to play specifically, that's one of the ways you combat the fact that, yeah, like it's no secret, it's been known for a while. And if you own a decent gaming PC, there's no reason to play anything else as long as that game is available on PC. The only way to make it so that someone needs to own your console is because that's either the only way to play Final Fantasy or it's the only way to play Halo, and then you got to go and make that happen. And they've got to figure out, I think that's really, and really what Nintendo has done has just taken that concept and gone to 3D chess level with it, right? They're not like, well, we're just going to give you a thing you can't get somewhere else. We're going to give you an experience you can't get somewhere else. It's going to be built into the very platform, right? So it's not just a name or a brand like Halo or Final Fantasy. It's like, first of all, they have all those things. There's all the Nintendo stuff. There's Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, all the things you can't get anywhere else. And so
they've got so many heavy hitters that they can roll out with every new console where you're just
right.
like, and the fact that it's not like Call of Duty where they just rely on the fact that it's called Call of Duty to sell games.
Right.
They make fantastic games.
I mean,
like
you put Pokemon on something, it's going to sell, whether it's good or not. And most of them are good, but Pokemon's you can make money releasing anything with the name Pokemon.
Let me actually look up the PS5 launch titles. I'm not 100% sure what all of them are.
That is a big problem.
Right, that's exactly the problem
for a console to have launched. I didn't even know it was coming out. Like, I knew that the Xbox was coming out because they marketed it like crazy. I didn't know the PlayStation was coming out until last night when they were like, the PlayStation is out. And I was like, oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's cool.
I
Godfall looks cool.
Yeah, Godfall looks really, really dope. Demon Souls, stuff like that. Like, and yeah, that's funny you say that because one, I saw way more stuff for PlayStation, but I also think a lot of that had to do with Sony screwing up this launch so bad in terms of they were already basically sold out. And over promising, so it's like there wasn't a whole lot of a need to do marketing. They
got
sold more
mastered,
PlayStations
right?
than they have. Yeah,
it's like they didn't put any bot protection on their PS5 sales, and so everyone is just sad that they didn't get one now. Basically, if they weren't ready to go on day one.
Yep, which is another huge screw up. Which, come on, guys, but another reason to wait a little while, and then we're gonna, we have to wait and see what the early glitches are. The Xbox 360 famously had the red ring of death. Now you can light them on fire with your vape if you want, apparently. So I got to see all the early nuances here and let that stuff play out.
User error is the biggest problem for that new Xbox right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. But like Meek says, it usually takes about a half a year to a year before the heavy hitters come out. There are rumors that Final Fantasy 16 will be out in March, and so it's like, well, shoot, that's as long as I can wait to buy this thing.
This is another advantage for why Nintendo gets it, is because they usually drop a console and then are like, oh, you want
Mario,
you want a reason to play our console? Well, here's a system seller to go along with it.
Drops day one, and it's like, oh, fine, all right, you got me.
I'm old enough to remember back in the day when Nintendo would launch a new system and the new Mario game would just come with it.
Yep.
When we got us our Super Nintendo and Super Mario World, one of the greatest games ever made by anybody ever, is just sitting there in it. Just like, oh, you bought the system and you're not sure you've got anything else to play yet? Play this for a long time until you can find Star Fox and shit like that.
The Mass Effect remake is coming out in the spring.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the sprint that is going to be this hockey season. I'm going to buy it. It's just going to sit there.
Play it on PC.
Right. Just hang out with it.
Dude. Of course.
All right. Well, I think that's about all the thoughts we've got so far. Again, since none of us have actually played it. We may have. So Evan got an Xbox Series X, I think, right? So we may have someone on next week to give us a little hands-on impression of what they're digging, what they're not digging about the new system so far. Eventually, before too long, I'm looking at I'm going to be one of these people, a Black Friday PS5. I might do that, or it's either going to be Black Friday or whatever day the next Final Fantasy comes out. That's when I'll get the
Did you see that guy on Twitter yesterday who had bought like 30 PlayStation 5s?
Yep.
No. And he set them up and he was like, make me offers.
There's a special place in hell for those people.
Like that,
yep.
It's gross. All right, let's move into our other topic of conversation then for the day. Take a quick sip of Strava Craft coffee. And we're going to talk about games as a service. AJ, this is something that we've been meaning to talk about for a while. I know it's something you've got a lot of thoughts on, so I'm going to just hand you the floor to get us started on this in terms of the modern age of gaming as a service.
Yeah, and it's interesting because last night, I do like to do a little bit of research before we do shows. I was looking into it a little bit, just trying to see how much money some of these companies make. And it's like, it's not, I know people decry microtransactions and the way that gaming has really shifted towards that model. Like a free-to-play model where you kind of buy your way through certain things, like a League of Legends.
Yeah.
I used to every single paycheck, I used to put $10 into League of Legends to buy their RP, their monetary in-game.
Gotta get them
currency.
skins.
Well, and it was actually to unlock skins and champions because it was like
because you ain't doing that grind every single day.
well, the IP grind in that game was so slow that it was like, and I played it so much, for a long time it was like the only game that I was playing.
Yeah,
and I had to fill that StarCraft void when I started breaking things, and I moved away from that. But it was interesting because like I was always happy with that because it was my decision. I ended up spending significantly more than $60, but I was good with it because I was getting my money's worth out of it without a doubt. And I think that's the interesting part of games as a service. And the other forms that we've seen them take on is a game like Destiny, which it dropped and it was supposed to be like, this is going to change gaming. And it's sort of disappointed on that level. And then if you look back, it kind of did change gaming. Because it ended up being really, over time, they made it significantly better. Yep. And like the expansions and the way that they continuously updated it, they kept giving their player base reasons to invest money into it. Because the subscription model basically is like World of Warcraft. That's like it for subscriptions in the world today.
The reality of it is, especially for AAA modern games, if you're not continually updating it, your game sucks.
Yeah. People play your game and they get to the end of it and they're done.
Yep.
And the reason that this became the reason this was a topic that kind of got brought up was because Marvel's Avengers came out, and I can tell you, I had it on day one. My initial thought was, this is going to be really good a year from now, because they will have fleshed out. They've already released the roster that they're planning to release over a period of time, and there's a ton of characters. And then when you play through the initial game, you've got Iron Man, you've got Thor, you've got Kamala Khan, and you have Captain America and Black Widow.
Yeah.
And and Hulk. And they all sort of play their own style. There are some similarities between some of them, but they have the combat is so fast. And it's so like, I played the crap out of Captain America because my entire life, all I wanted to do was be a cool Captain America in a game where you could actually, like, the shield was a big part of what you did, and it wasn't just a prop that he threw and you waited for it to come back.
Yeah.
And in that game, it's amazing. It's the coolest combat I've ever played. The Black Widow combat is unlike anything I've played outside of like Ninja Gaiden and those types of games, like Devil May Cry. Like, the combat is incredible, and it's tailored so specifically to each character that you can feel like, oh man, not only does it make you want to play every character, but it makes you excited for, I can't wait for them to do more.
Yeah.
Because their first DLC character was Hawkeye. Well, it's both of the Hawkeyes. Boy and girl version. And they will be different from each other. And like, Hawkeye is unlike any of the other characters they have in the game, because it's not a lot of hand-to-hand combat, but he also doesn't have like little lasers that he gets to shoot at people, or in Thor's case, call down lightning.
Like you do.
So, like, it's a totally different brand of combat. And it just seems like when the game came out, you could just read the reviews and people were like, meh.
Yeah.
Like, there's not enough to do here. Like,
yeah, I heard that it was
get to max level. You've played through all the maps, you've played through all the quests. It's like, blah. I get it. I don't have any reason to continue to play this. And it's like, look, this is a game that it's going to take time.
Yeah.
They're going to be constantly updating it over the course of its entire life. they've already said they want to continue to fully support it for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Where they have like a content plan. And I'm like, dude, if they've got a plan for 5 years, like $60 for that game is going to be amazing.
Value. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be you fast forward a couple of years from now, and if they're still going strong, they're still making money, game's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And it just seems like such a smart way to do business. You know, there are you look at a game like Diablo 3 came out and it was really it was aggressively mediocre. And then over time, you know, when Reaper of Souls dropped, it's really only expansion. And they had the Loot 2.0, totally changed the game. That game took such a jump from, yeah, it's all right, to this is what it should have been on launch.
Yep.
Right. No Man's Sky is another game that walked
No Man's Sky is a great example.
Game now. Yep.
And these are all games where it's like, these are games that are meant to be enjoyed over a long period of time, and not the gamer sprint that we all kind of get into.
Serotonin burst, yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Like even a game like Divinity, you know, or Valkyria Chronicles, where you play through it and it's like it takes you 80 hours to beat it. But then you're done. And you're like, okay, well, I don't
never gonna
really
pick that up
need
again.
To revisit this.
Yeah.
And they're just very different games with different goals, you know, long term. And I feel like you know, to each their own, of course, you know, your mileage will always vary, right, when it comes to that stuff. But I feel the games as a service is something I've really gotten attached to over the years, because when subscription kind of moved away, and for some reason WoW continues to get away with it and the rest of the world can't, which annoys me, but whatever. It's like it's super impressive the way that some of these developers are able to take their games and turn them into something good. You know, Marvel Heroes was awful on launch, and then they relaunched it as like Marvel Heroes Alpha or Omega or something, and it was basically 2.0.
Yeah,
and it was incredible. By the end of it, you know, it shut down because LOL Studio ran out of money, but it got so good by the end that it was like, this should have been one of the definitive ARPGs of this era.
Right.
And because people gave up on it on launch because they were like, this sucks, and they never went back to it. It's crazy how easily you can lose players.
Yeah.
It's to your point with WoW subscription service and any game that releases expansions that cost money or have a cost sink of some kind, it just comes down to a value proposition. And the main key to the value proposition for me is that I'm getting new content. It's not pay to win.
Yeah.
And
100%.
And more importantly, and some people might disagree with me on this, but that it's not randomized. Because if I'm paying money to open
loot
up
boxes,
and I have no idea what I'm going to get, it just feels bad. Like 90% of the time, you're going to get something you don't care about or that you didn't want, and it feels like you wasted money for that 10% dopamine hit, and it's just not a good value. So with something like WoW, yeah, it's a subscription service. It costs a lot of money, but I know what I'm getting every single time I pay them that money.
Right.
Yeah, I like loot boxes for like skins and stuff. Like I didn't mind the loot box system in like Overwatch. I thought that was fine. But I preferred the League of Legends where I could just buy what I want.
I think loot boxes are a fine addition if you can also buy the skins directly. If the loot box is like, hey, half the price and you have a chance, fine, great. But if it's like you can only get this 1% chance at a skin through a loot box, and the only way you get it is by opening hundreds of them, it just sucks.
Yeah.
It's a bad feeling, dude, because you're like, well, maybe someday.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Alrighty.
I think for me, that's sort of the biggest distinction. Rudo was sort of framing it as a sort of economic decision, which I think is right too. It's like, just am I getting my money's worth ultimately? And if so, as long as I know what I'm getting. I think the other way, because Meeks had a comment here about just there are more options than ever for each person's play style. I think where I don't mind whether it be a subscription or paying for loot boxes, whatever else, putting extra money into something that I've already bought is it giving me more options to enjoy this how I want? Like you said, as long as I can go and buy the skin directly. Like if I do get that dopamine hit from a little bit of gambling and I know what I'm getting myself into and I go, I didn't get it, but that's okay. That was part of the fun I chose. As long as they're not forcing me down that path, right? As long as you're using your subscription models or your in-game transactions to enhance the options and choices that the player has, not restrict them, not say you have to do it this way. Otherwise, sorry, bud, you don't get to have fun playing this game.
That's where I struggle with EA and stuff like Hockey Ultimate Team and things like that, because it's like you basically have to invest money if you want to get the good players.
Yep.
And pay to win just ain't it, Chief.
Totally. And MLB, the show, is running into that problem. They've built in a lot of stuff to try not to, and they still run into that problem with the same kind of thing. But yeah, that's why I think it is kind of funny. Like AJ was saying at the beginning, there's this, I think a lot of people just have a natural reflexive negative reaction to microtransactions or subscribing or whatever else it is. And for me, it's just like, if they're giving you a better experience, if they're allowing you to have, especially if they're allowing you to have more control. So like free to play, I love free to play games that have the option to pay to make the experience better, but that do let you grind through it in a competitive fashion, because there's so much, like, and it just feels so good to know other people are spending their hard-earned money and you're just spending your time and your ability at the game and you can still beat them. That's cool. And if you can't, again, you're screwing up my experience. Yeah.
The greatest example of that was the new Star Wars Battlefront a couple of years ago from EA, where they capped how much you could grind in the game as a non-paying player. It was like, you've earned your maximum for the day, and it, like, someone calculated it out and was like, it would take 10 years of playing like as a full-time job to grind out everything in the game, and it's just nonsense.
That's absolutely ridiculous. Whereas, you mentioned WoW or whatever. The only subscription I pay, I kick it up every off season. I do Final Fantasy 14, MMORPG, and huge, gigantic world. It's $10-11 a month, and I can go do whatever I want in there. I know exactly what I'm getting, and there's all these expansions, and I'm never going to be able to explore it all, even if I spent every day of my off season for hours and hours and hours, and I don't have to pay anything extra than that one thing per month. So it's all about yeah, I mean, he's right. Every piece of entertainment, I will oftentimes even compare it to other stuff to make sure that I'm, being honest with myself about, like, do I just love this one video? Am I pouring too much money into this? Am I, doing that kind of thing? And then you think about, if I spend $10 to go see a movie for an hour and a half, and that movie was okay, maybe the movie was great,
Cheap movie.
I was gonna say that's a matinee out here in Boulder, like, right? And then movies have gotten more and more and more expensive. Video games. I remember walking into a Toys R Us and buying Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey for $75 on the N64, and and if Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey had turned out to be a bad game, it didn't. That game is dope. But if it had, I'm out $75. They weren't going to update it. They weren't going to give me new players or new uniforms. They weren't going to, there was no avenue to fix it. I'm just out $75 and I have a piece of plastic now. So that's part of me that goes, all the avenues are there for games as a service or subscriptions to make gaming better. It's all about the intentions of the people behind it.
And just to like reiterate a little bit of the difference here, Final Fantasy 14, you pay your subscription. And for that subscription price, you could theoretically do anything in the game.
Right.
Compared to an EA game where you pay for the game and then there's an entire section of the game that's locked behind more money.
Right.
And
yeah.
and my bigger problem with that is it was like, okay, you pay for the EA game, and then if it was like, and here's $10 a month for this part of the game, then at least I would say, all right, I know that's $10 a month to just do that. But if it's maybe you have to buy $20 of loot boxes, or maybe you have to buy 200 of loot boxes, and I have no idea, that's where I struggle.
Yeah.
Where I get frustrated with WoW is that it's $15 a month, which is fine, but then it's an expansion comes out and then it's $60.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
$15 a month to continue to play it. And it's like, really? You're going to charge me a full price for an expansion, and then you're going to make me pay per month to continue to do this? Like, it doesn't sit well with me. It consistently eats away at me.
I hear you.
Even as I'm playing, I'm annoyed by it.
And like, I should qualify. Obviously, I think WoW is worth it for me, given that I've gotten back into the game and have continued playing it. But there are plenty of people that have cash to spend that go, you know what? This EA Sports game is worth the money. It's worth it for me to not only buy the game, but then to drop $500 on
Sure.
card packs. And if you're getting the experience you want out of it, then great. Don't let anyone stop you. Like,
I knew some dudes who, I swear to God, they had their jobs just so they could play NBA 2K. I got involved with like a pickup, because you can do, one of the best things about that is you can just get together with other random players and form a team. And a couple of years ago, I was playing with these guys, and it was like, seriously, all you do is earn money and drop it all into this game. And it blew my mind. I was like, this, what a crazy existence. But I guess if that's what you want to do, more power to you. I always go back to that same equation. You know, it's like, if I'm going to spend 20 hours this week or this month playing WoW or Final Fantasy 14, you know, what would that equate to if I spent 20 hours going to the movies or 20 hours going out to eat? And typically for those experiences, I feel like I'm getting more bang for my buck. But then when you see those, some of them that don't,
real here,
you know,
regardless of which avenue of gaming you choose to go down, it's almost always going to be a better value proposition than pretty much anything else out there. Because
straight up,
you go out there, you know, you go to a Rockies game, even if you're sitting in the rock pile for $10, you know, you're either paying for the gas to drive down there, and then you're paying for parking, and then you're paying for food, and you're paying for all this other stuff, right?
Yeah. That's a couple $100 for about 3.5 hours of entertainment.
Well, and it's like if you get nice seats, like, okay, well, here's, you know, I just dropped $200 and I'm sitting 4 rows behind whoever's playing first base that day. Today, it just unfortunately happens to be Josh Fuentes. That's not exciting.
How dare you? This is a Josh Fuentes slander-free zone, my friend.
Not anymore. And it's like, you know, like it's a good time.
Totally. But
you know, they
might lose 9-1.
It's just like, how many different games could you have bought for the same money on Steam?
For $60, you could have played as Josh Fuentes at first base and helped him win the game.
Right.
Right. It is amazing.
Could have used the help too.
That's a great point, AJ. I think to sort of finish this one out on it. And we talked about last time, whenever, about just the value of modern gaming. And it doesn't look like the prices for individual games are going up that much, but it is amazing how much value you get for being a gamer from your entertainment experience versus just about anything else. And I think that's one of the reasons why the industry continues to grow. And one of the reasons why, despite our frustrations with some of these things, added microtransactions that are bleeding us dry. What is Fortnite now the most profitable game in history, and it's free? Like, imagine telling one of us that 10 years ago, that a game that they give you totally for free would be the most profitable video game in history.
The rise
I mean,
of premium games is real.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just League of Legends is free, and
Yeah.
they are 10 years into their pro circuit, which are it's now a worldwide thing,
Right.
and those guys make unbelievable money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dota 2
That's
the
like
same way.
it costs like what, $1 million to own a team in North
Yeah.
America.
Yep. I mean,
Like the worst region.
it's the stuff they do is absurd. Dota 2 is free, and they have a tournament every year called the International that they fund
Yeah.
solely by the sale of their skins in the game, and the prize pools are like $20 million.
Yeah,
Like
it's insane.
That it's just, and it used to be to make that much money as a video game company, you just had to sell a bunch of units. That was the only other way to make money, was to sell a bunch of units. And I hope that ultimately for the gaming industry, this is a good thing, that more resources coming in allow more great products to be made. But
Well, I think it's great because it allows smaller companies to move in.
Yes.
I mean, you look at Riot Games. You know, that now they're branching out into multiple things other than League, but that's because they made, they printed money for a decade.
Yeah.
So that they could do that.
Yeah.
And instead of it being the heavy hitters stay the heavy hitters forever, you look at Fortnite. How many people had an Epic Games launcher 4 years ago?
Right.
Yep.
I had one because I liked to play some of their old school titles, but that was it. I played Fortnite when it was in its alpha stage before the Battle Royale thing came to be.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really fun and I really liked it. And I don't like Battle Royale games, so I went the other way on Fortnite, but they made so much money that they can do whatever they want now.
No, and that's maybe, hopefully, probably not a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm very hopeful that, because you look at other studios, look at the way that like Naughty Dog had to like grind their way through building a reputation over the course of 20 years. That you make one good game,
and you keep it up to date. Now
you've got to keep making good games. If you're making games as a service, you have one good idea and then you just keep updating it. You listen to your players and you just keep updating it. And if you're gonna make standalone titles, you're gonna make like campaign experiences like Naughty Dog does. They've got to continue to be excellent. You have to make great games. So I think games as a service has only been a good thing for gaming because it gives smaller companies chances, and it allows different ideas to flourish.
I know we're finishing up, but just to kind of like reiterate, a lot of people don't even think of things like online matchmaking as a service in a game, but it absolutely is.
Mm-hmm.
Like when games provide servers for you to play on, that's a huge deal. Having a dedicated server to play on, unlike playing with a host back in the day, trust me, the difference is monumental.
Oh, right. Man, remember those days? Yeah, like you can literally, and I know they're sponsors, but whatever, you can download WGT Golf for free right now, DNVRgolf.com, and you start playing it. And there's stuff in there.
Join the Masters tournament that we just opened last night, and then take a screenshot of it, and you can win free stuff with us.
Right. That's simple. You actually can make money or earn material goods from playing this game. But it does have stuff in there. If you're a hardcore golf person, you love the top golf stuff, you can start getting better clubs and different golf balls and better swag for your guy. But none of it's like you have to spend all of that in order to win, or if you get matched up against somebody, again, which is a service, that they're matching you up against people in the world that you can chat with. Any one of us, you can challenge any one of the three of us right now. Go in there, start chatting with us, talk some trash. And if one of us has beefed up our guys for a little bit of pay service, we don't automatically win the golf game. because you still have to be good at the game in order to win. You got to get closer to the hole, all that good stuff. And so
I could buy the best putter in that game, and I still wouldn't be able to putt. I tell you that.
right. It helps, but it doesn't dramatically alter the experience. And games like WGT golf might not have existed, a decade or so ago, because there wouldn't have been a model for that to make sense. But now that there's a niche audience for it, and it can succeed and give you just a fun, distraction, if that's what you're looking for, which some people, that's all video games are, is a momentary hour-long distraction, and then you go back to your life. And for some people, we dive a lot deeper into them. And so it gives you that option as well. And I think that's the best of the games as a service concept. Let me do this just for free as an adult without a whole lot of extra time and try it out, see if I like it. And then if I so choose, I can invest in it.
If more companies just gave a shit about player flexibility and letting players play games the way they want.
Pay what you want, play what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Gaming would take a nice step forward.
Yep.
I love that we live in an age where I can go onto the PlayStation Store right now and find something for $5 made by some indie company out there and just play it and just see whether or not it's good. And more of that, I think, is better. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a pretty fun conversation about all these stuff. Like we said, we'll have to do our best to get, if not our own hand, I don't think any of the three of us are going to have our own hands on a next generation console by next week. But maybe we can talk to somebody who does, and we can get a little bit more of that going. Let us know what other topics are on the tip of your mind when it comes to the video game world. We really do appreciate all of those of you out there who have been joining us, whether it's on our Twitch channel, whether it's on the DNVR Gaming Periscope or on YouTube. Remember to subscribe to all of those things so that you get all this stuff. We got to get our streaming situation back together as well. We're figuring that out on the Twitch channel. So again, make sure you're joining us for all of that. Make sure you're subscribed to the DNVR.com. You can use either one of those promo codes. I'll plug them both. You guys got Avs, we got Rockies, right? We don't have to talk about those other people out there.
Yeah, we can team up. Nuggets and Broncos need to be taken down a peg. It's fine. Yeah,
totally. So use either one of those promo codes, because if you do, you'll get a free shirt, mask, and a sticker pack for whichever team, Rockies or Avs, that you've chosen. And we're going to have all kinds of phenomenal off-season content for you all to read. So thank you so much for hanging out with us for this episode of the DNVR Gaming Podcast. We appreciate you all very much, and we will see you next time.